Alright guys, welcome back, and today we're checking out another SCP. Today's going to be SCP-3583 Hellbus. Well, guessing this is a bus that goes to hell? Don't know, but let's find out. This is going to be from Dr. Bob, so we're doing something a little bit different today. Let's go ahead and check it out.
The final bell rings, signaling the end of a new class's first day at middle school. A girl exits the building, her backpack slung over her shoulder, body hunched under its unfamiliar weight. It's been a long and tiring day. Her family just moved to this small Oklahoma town from the big city, and of course, she's spent every minute since then trying to adjust to her new surroundings. It's never easy to be the new kid in town. Right now, all she wants to do is to get home and relax. She doesn't want to think about school and its related anxieties for the rest of the night.
I could feel
As
that.
she walks down the stairs, she notices the school bus parked at the curb. Thank goodness, she thinks. I can't wait to get out of here. This day can't end soon enough. But for some reason, something about this bus sets her nerves on edge.
Yeah, it's rickety as can be. Look at that thing. It's like someone just cobbled together a school bus from other pieces. Oh shoot, it's a school bus. Is this a school bus that takes kids to hell?
What is it that just seems off? There's nothing blatantly wrong with the bus, but when she looks closer, she realizes that it definitely looks a little strange. The different parts of the bus just don't add up. Some parts are new, clearly just off the factory floor, while others are battered and bruised from long-time wear. Some parts even seem to come from different makes and models of bus. I guess it's not that strange, she thinks. After all, her old school always had a measly budget. You could practically see the road through holes in the floor sometimes. Her new one probably just has those same issues. Aren't those problems all over the country after all? The school probably just had to buy a dilapidated old bus cobbled together from random parts to make ends meet.
I mean, God forbid we adequately fund our schools, right?
And besides, she thinks as she watches her classmates pile onto the strange bus without a second thought, none of the other kids seem to think that there's anything weird going on. This must all just be in my head, she thinks. I'm probably just being weird because I'm so tired. I can't let myself become the new girl and the weird girl. The girl is startled as she hears a voice behind her. Hey! She turns and sees a boy that she recognizes. He sits behind her in class. They haven't spoken before now, but he seems friendly enough. You're the new kid in school, aren't you? He says. Yes, my family just moved to town. She tries to talk to him, but she can't help but keep getting distracted by the weird bus. Right. The boy glances at the bus, as if he can sense her discomfort with it. You worried about the bus? I was pretty nervous my first time riding it, but I don't worry about it anymore. You get used to it, he tells her. Right, she says. The girl feels her cheeks going red with embarrassment. She doesn't want her classmate to think that she's scared of riding a bus. What if he tells the other kids that she's frightened of a bus ride? They're all going to think that she's some kind of silly baby. I'm not scared of the bus. It is just a bus, right? The boy grins, as if he knows something that she doesn't know. The girl doesn't want to admit her fear.
Yo, homeboy's a little creepy. I don't know if that's just me or what, but he's a little creepy.
And so, with a defiant step, she climbs the stairs and enters the bus. Once she's on board, her unease doesn't go away. The first thing that she notices is that there is no one in the driver's seat. That's weird. Did the driver just step away to use the bathroom or something? It seems pretty irresponsible to leave the bus unattended. There's a line forming behind her, though, so she doesn't have time to think about this. She takes a seat and stares out the window, keeping to herself. The boy from her class follows and takes a seat next to her. It's a little wild at first, but trust me, you'll get used to it fast. In fact, some of us think it's kind of fun now. The girl blinks in confusion. Who is this weirdo that gets such a kick out of riding the bus? She almost wants to snap at him, to tell him that...
Well, either everybody on the bus is... I mean, I don't know. If this bus does do something like go to hell, these kids are pretty chillax about it. I mean, this guy's like, yeah, it's fun. Jump on board. We're having a great old time.
Of course she's not scared of riding the bus. She's ridden the bus hundreds of times back at her old school. But at the same time, there's definitely something weird going on here. And as much as she's trying to play it cool, she's clearly not able to hide her feelings. This boy can easily sense that she's uncomfortable. Suddenly, the bus lurches into action and pulls away from the curb. But wait, how can this be? She never saw the driver get back on board. The bus can't be driving itself, can it? She stands up in her seat and cranes her neck to see. Her eyes bulge from her head in fear and surprise as she realizes that, in fact, there's no one driving the bus at all. The driver's seat is empty and the wheel is turning by itself as the bus careens down the road. "Who's driving the bus?" she shouts, but the other kids barely even react to her outburst. Most of them are chattering amongst themselves, and only one or two turn to look at her briefly before shrugging and turning back to their own private conversations. A chorus of giggles behind her alert her to
None of these kids care. So I'm a little curious as to what happens. I mean, you would think that if at any point you went to hell, you'd be freaked out about it.
the fact that she's just completely embarrassed herself. "What's the matter? You scared?" calls an older boy from the back of the bus, guffawing loudly. "Of course no one's driving. Don't you know anything?" "Leave her alone," says the boy in the seat next to her. "It's her first time. She's never ridden the bus before." She's too panicked to correct him that, yes, she has been on the bus before, but not a bus like this one. "What's going on?
Not
We're
on
gonna
this
die,"
bus.
she cries, clutching at the seat in front of her in terror. Despite her fear, though, she can't help but notice that the bus isn't simply speeding into oblivion. The bus obeys all the traffic laws, stopping at stop signs and signaling before turns. It's almost as if the bus itself is alive and aware of what it's doing. "That's just how it is," says the boy next to her in a matter-of-fact voice as if he's anticipated her question. Apparently, this is a normal day for kids here in this Oklahoma town. The girl doesn't think she could ever get used to a bus that drives itself. But what comes next is going to prove to be even stranger. "But you might want to close your eyes for this next part," says the boy. The girl
Close your
asks him
eyes?
what he means by that. But before he can answer, she feels a
Hell no, creepy boy. I'm not gonna close my eyes around you.
strange wave of sudden nausea overcome her. Her vision goes hazy, and the whole world seems to waver in her sight. But the sensation passes quickly,
See, he roofied your juice box. Get out of there.
and everything is quickly back to normal. Or is it? She turns to look out the window. The city passing by is familiar. She can recognize many of the same buildings that she passed on her way to school this morning. But now they seem strangely altered. The structures are in advanced states of disrepair, with broken windows and boarded-up doors. The gutters are filled with trash and debris, and the streets seem to be abandoned. The
Okay.
bus takes a left turn down a side street, and the girl catches a brief glimpse of the town's city hall in the distance. She gasps. City Hall is on fire.
Just
Great
straight up
clouds of hot
burning.
red flame pouring from the shattered windows. Sirens echo through the air. The sky above is an ominous red, filled with angry storm clouds with jagged bolts of dry lightning dancing between the thunderheads, and she can see the funnel of a distant tornado making a touchdown in the hills. The bus briefly comes to a stop in front of the library, dutifully obeying a flickering traffic light. The library's windows are dark, but she can vaguely see shapes moving about inside. Electric sparks shoot from malfunctioning street lamps, and downed power cables flail like angry snakes in the street. It looks like some terrible natural disaster has hit the city. But what could it be? Surely she would have heard some warning while she was at school. They wouldn't have just carried on as usual in the classroom while the world outside burned. She turns to the boy next to her, a fearful question on her trembling lips. He seems to know what's going on. Otherwise, how could he be so eerily calm while everything outside the bus is falling apart or on fire? What happened to the city? Was there an earthquake? No, we would have felt it. Was there a hurricane? Every possible
So what I'm getting here is, it seems like the bus doesn't take them to hell. So it seems less like it's taking them to hell than it is to an alternate reality, or maybe it's like, for those of you who have seen Stranger Things, right? Maybe it's like the Upside Down. So the Upside Down is basically a mirror image of the real world, except it's all run down and dilapidated, and instead of people going to the store, there's monsters running down the streets. So maybe it's something like this, kind of like an upside down version of the real world here.
disaster scenario runs through her head as she desperately tries to think of an explanation. But what happens next reveals to her that there's no natural explanation for the strange sights that assail her eyes. As she watches through the window, a squadron of armed soldiers march down the street toward the darkened library. Suddenly, the doors fly open and people pour out, screaming as if they're being chased by some unspeakable evil. The girl expects that the soldiers must be here for disaster relief, but she is horrified when, instead of helping the escaping library patrons, they instead open fire upon the crowd. The girl screams in terror, but the other kids barely even notice. They're too busy talking.
They don't
and
even
laughing.
care.
One kid is so disinterested in the spectacle outside that he's playing with a handheld game console.
There's always going to be one dude like this. There's always going to be one. You know what? I'm not even hating on this dude because that would probably be me. I'd probably be sitting in the back of the Hellbus playing a Game Boy or something. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, because clearly everything that's going on outside of this bus does not affect the people in the bus. None of these kids are afraid, and they've clearly all done this before. So they've taken this trip before, probably many times, to the point where they're completely uninterested in what's going on. So it seems like the bus itself is actually a safe zone. You know, maybe they can't even be seen or something, because it doesn't. At no point has anyone tried to interact with the bus yet. So maybe?
Rather than watch the carnage unfold. How can this be happening? Has the whole world gone crazy? She's filled with terror as she wonders, is the whole town under siege? Is her house still standing? Are her parents safe? Where is this bus even taking her? I told you that you might want to cover your eyes, says the boy next to her. The bus continues on its route, passing all sorts of terrifying sights. A parking lot has been transformed into a mass grave. She watches as uniformed police line up peaceful citizens against a brick wall to brutally execute them by firing squad. Mass riots are taking place in the town's central park. People are yelling obscenities and pounding one another into pulp, while armed law enforcement officers sweep in to escalate the situation. The air is thick with screams, gunfire, and the
Well, at least police escalating the situation hasn't changed from the real world.
smell of burning bodies. The shopping mall is overrun with giant spiders, which chase screaming shoppers
Giant
out of
spiders.
exits. She sees rats as big as cars scurrying out of the alleyways, grabbing random people with their taloned paws and biting their heads off with their long, sharp incisors. On the distant hills, she can also
What
make out
the
outlines of
hell
hidden
is
stranger
that
creatures
thing?
She cannot identify. Dinosaurs, aliens, demons. She doesn't come from a particularly religious family, but the sights that she sees today definitely make her think that she might be seeing a glimpse into the maw of hell itself. The girl has never seen anything so awful in all her life. To her surprise, several of the other kids cheer as the bus drives past a gaggle of walking corpses. They're mutilated and half decomposed, but somehow still mobile, shambling down the sidewalk and moaning. How can the other kids be enjoying this? Yeah, 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 chant the kids. Zombies, that rules! Maybe we'll get to see them eat some brains for once, cries the older boy in the back of the bus with sudden glee.
See, yeah, they've all seen this before. Like, it's to the point where they're hoping to see new stuff because all the current stuff is boring. Okay, so at least the bus itself is a safe spot.
What is going on? Repeats the girl. It's just the usual bus ride, says the boy next to her. Don't worry, I felt the same way when I first started at this school, but it's really not so bad. I mean, it's kind of cool, isn't it? The girl opens her mouth to respond, but she's suddenly overcome with that familiar feeling of nausea. The world quivers briefly in front of her, and suddenly, everything is back to normal.
Okay,
The sky is clear
I
and
get it.
blue. The building.
So she must get that sense of nausea whenever they pass into this other reality, and gets it again when they pass back into the real world. I see what's going on here. So yeah, it passes into another dimension or reality. It seems to be, much like Stranger Things, like a mirror upside down reverse image of the world where things are just out of control. Monsters are running around. It's the apocalypse. Interesting.
Things are no longer dilapidated. People are bustling in the streets, going about their usual business. There's no sign of any of the horrors that she just witnessed. No fires, no soldiers, no monsters, and no zombies. The boy next to her commented that they must have been reaching someone's stop. From around the bus, she hears several other kids groan in frustration. They were hoping that they would get to see some exciting zombie carnage, but it looks like that show will have to wait for another time. The bus slowly comes to a halt, and the girl tenses as she hears the hiss of its air brakes. The door opens, and the girl realizes that the bus has stopped in front of her house. She's relieved to see that her house is standing, and she can see her mother gardening in the front yard, safe and sound. Was it all a dream? "This is my stop," says the girl, standing up as if in a daze. The first time's always a little wild," says the boy as she leaves. "Don't worry, tomorrow'll be easier." The girl steps onto the curb and away from the bus. The doors close behind her, and the bus pulls away, continuing on its journey. "Did you enjoy your first day of school today?" asks the girl's mother. The girl can only stare in shock as the bus drives away. What just happened? Did a self-driving bus just take her on a tour of hell before bringing her right to her own doorstep? Or did she really just imagine that whole experience? As you astute Foundation veterans have probably...
Whew, man. All right. Well, a self-driving bus in 2022, not that surprising, right? Isn't that what they're trying to do anyways, right? They're trying to make trucks self-driving, cars self-driving. That's not that crazy. Going to another dimension, that's crazy. Now, this SCP seems to be interesting in the fact that it seems to be useful. A little weird taking an unnecessary trip through another dimension, but nobody's injured, nobody's hurt. I mean, they might be mentally scarred from seeing some crazy stuff, but apparently they do it every day to the point where they get used to it. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting SCP, just in the fact that most SCPs are dangerous. And apparently, they let children ride this SCP. I don't know why. Hopefully, they're going to tell us here. And you're telling me no one at the school knows about this, or the kids don't say anything to people? Like, what's going on here?
Already put together, this new girl at school didn't imagine anything she just saw. That girl just had her first encounter with SCP-3583. At face value, SCP-3583 resembles an ordinary school bus, albeit one composed of completely random parts all held together by some unknown force. The bus is self-driving and in fact resists any attempt by a human to sit in the driver's seat. At some point, SCP-3583 became attached to a particular school in an undisclosed Oklahoma town for reasons the SCP Foundation still doesn't understand. Every school day, at 3:45 p.m., it appears outside of the school just as the school day comes to a close. The bus can hold up to 56 children and up to 8 adults. If it judges that not enough children have boarded, SCP-3583 will begin to honk its horn. The horn has a peculiar, hypnotic effect on all children within hearing range. They will be compelled to drop whatever they are doing and board the bus, meaning that the bus has some innate cognitohazardous properties. If the bus still feels that it hasn't reached its quota, it will increase the volume of its horn until it has attracted enough children that it can begin its route.
Interesting. So it does have a slightly cognitohazardous effect on the people around it, but it's not really a dangerous effect, and it doesn't really seem to have any side effects, at least right now. But it's able to basically lure people onto the bus. Huh.
Depending on how many adults have boarded, SCP-3583 has 2 distinct patterns of behavior. If 4 or fewer adults are aboard, SCP-3583 enters behavior pattern 1. In this pattern, SCP-3583 will dematerialize and enter a parallel reality called SCP-3583-A. SCP-3583-A superficially resembles the normal geography of the same Oklahoma town, with some minor but very important changes. The typical city landscape is replaced with a hellish alternative full of crumbling architecture, marauding monsters, shambling zombies, fires and natural disasters, and instances of military violence and civil unrest. SCP-3583 will travel through this terrifying hell dimension along normal bus routes, studiously obeying.
The only thing that bothers me about this is they keep calling it a hell dimension. It's I really don't agree with that usage of words, just because when you hear, okay, get in this vehicle and it will take you to hell, you're expecting like hell. You're expecting fire and brimstone, you're expecting demons, and you're expecting like the afterlife version of hell. This I don't consider hell. This I just consider alternate dimension, alternate reality. So constantly calling this a hell dimension, I just flat out disagree with. call it an alternate dimension, call it a mirror universe, call it the upside down, whatever you want to call it, but it's clearly not hell.
Obeying all traffic laws and pausing to re-enter our own reality, only to deliver kids to their own homes. Interestingly, SCP-3583 only offers door-to-door service and ignores all conventionally posted bus stops. If
Okay.
5 or more adults are aboard, SCP-3583 enters Behavior Pattern 2. In this pattern, SCP-3583 will travel to the sites of mass casualty events, seemingly arriving in the days or weeks preceding the incident, where it will circle the area for approximately 45 to 100 minutes. After this, it will enter Pattern 1, delivering each child passenger to their home, before then delivering its adult passengers home as well.
What?
Known mass casualty sites visited include Pompeii, Nanking, and the World Trade Center in New York. Passengers inside SCP-3583 can take photos or video through the bus window, and all footage shot from within SCP-3583 matches exactly with archive footage taken at the
So when they go to these the events of a mass casualty, when they go to these places, it looks to me like they're not in the mirror universe. They're not in the upside down, if you will. It looks like they're in the regular world, but they've been sent to a different time and place. Can this bus travel not only to another mirror like dimension of our own, but also travel through space and time within our own reality, within our own quote unquote real world? Because it seems like when it goes to these these real world mass casualty events, there seems to be no indication that this is the reverse mirror upside down version of the world.
mass casualty site at the time that SCP-3583 supposedly visited. However, SCP-3583 itself has never been reported by witnesses at any site or seen in any archive footage of any site. Luckily, SCP-3583 has proven to be a boon to this struggling school district. The school principal noted that SCP-3583 has a better safety record than any human driver. In addition, it never calls in sick and is never late for a pickup or drop-off.
Bro, these schools are so underfunded. He's just like, yeah, I don't know where it came from, but it gets the job done, and I don't have the resources to hire another driver, so we just let it do what it does. Don't look a gift bus in the mouth, okay? Just let it do its job. Don't ask any questions. Like, they're so underfunded that they just don't care. They're just like, whatever. It gets the job done, and no one's complaining about it. So let's just keep doing its thing. And most importantly, it doesn't cost us any time or resources.
Every student.
This is an SCP born out of budget mismanagement
that has received a ride in SCP-3583 has arrived safely, if a little shaken, at their home destination. And best of all, SCP-3583 is saving the school a lot of money on both driver pay and vehicle maintenance. Money that the school has used to hire a new music teacher. The general consensus of the local community is that as long as SCP-3583 wants to work as a school bus and continue...
The whole community is in on it. The whole town knows that this bus goes to a whole nother dimension, and everybody's cool with it. That's the most surprising thing out of this whole story. Not the fact that the bus goes to another dimension where people are just being murdered in the streets, but the fact that every parent is cool with it. Telling me there's not one Karen mom out there that's throwing a fit over this. There's got to be some like religious conservative parent that's like, listen, I don't want my kids seeing zombies or some ridiculous nonsense like that. The most unrealistic thing about this scenario is not the magic school bus, but everybody being just fine with it.
Continues to do a good job. Who are they to look a gift horse in the mouth? Although it still might behoove some of SCP-3583's more sensitive riders to shut their eyes and plug their ears until they get safely home. The SCP Foundation first became aware of SCP-3583 when students began posting cell phone footage of their rides online. Although the Foundation has successfully scrubbed information about SCP-3583 from the internet, it has been less...
So they do tell people about it. They do know. The administration knows. The people know. The parents know. Okay, all right.
Successful in figuring out what to do with the so-called school bus from hell. Foundation field agents are so far unable to explain SCP-3583's motive or operations. Conventional attempts to contain SCP-3583, such as impounding the bus or towing it to the junkyard, are futile. SCP-3583 will immediately dematerialize, falling apart into a rubble of disparate bus parts as the force binding it together appears to abandon this plane. However, SCP-3583 will always return the next school day, ready and willing to begin its afternoon shift. Agents have considered closing the affected school, but feared that would only move the problem, as SCP-3583 would simply attach itself to another school. The SCP Foundation is currently monitoring the situation and has several agents embedded within the school district posing as regular staff. Because of this immense difficulty in containment, SCP-3583 has been given the Keter Object Class. Considering the number of SCP anomalies that involve horrific bodily harm being done to their victims, it's honestly a breath of fresh air to be dealing with one this seemingly benevolent. A little post-traumatic stress disorder aside, of course. And while Hellbus may be what most around the Foundation have taken to referring to this particular anomaly, I'm going to stick to my own name, the Tragic School Bus. Now,
okay, guys. That was SCP-3583 Hellbus. Now, like I said, my only beef with it is the name. I feel like it's improperly named. Like, if I were to have named it, I would have called it, I don't know, like the Interdimensional School Bus or something like that. But what I do like about this is you don't often see SCPs that don't hurt people. This actually seems, while it may be somewhat trauma-inducing, it seems like the children are never actually in any kind of danger. It doesn't seem like anything or anyone in this mirror upside down dimension world tries to interact with the school bus or tries to get on the school bus or take people off of it. I would assume that they've had, the administrator said that it has a better safety record than any driver, which I would assume means that no one has ever gotten hurt, lost, injured, or killed while riding this bus. So I do like it in the fact that it's a little bit more rare and a little bit more unique of an SCP based solely on the fact that it doesn't hurt, maim, or kill anybody that rides it. I would ride it, actually. I would, knowing that it's safe and doesn't kill you and actually drops you off right at home. You don't even have to walk home from a bus stop. That's actually pretty dope. But yeah, guys, I hope you liked the video. Today we did Dr. Bob, something a little bit different, which kind of bouncing around the websites. And if you did, please like, subscribe. As always, leave a comment down below. Let me know what SCP you want to see next. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And as always, take care of yourselves. Have a great day.